AITA for dumping my girlfriend after she praised her ex, just to embarrass me in front of friends? I am 27 years old, and until recently, I was in a relationship with a girl named Madison. We were together for almost 3 years. When I met her, the first thing that attracted me was her confidence. She was one of those people who enters a room and automatically grabs attention, not because she did anything exaggerated, but because she transmitted a strong, determined energy. I, on the other hand, have always been quieter. I like to avoid conflicts, think before I speak, and keep calm. At first, I felt that she and I complemented each other. Her character pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I believe my way of being helped her tone down her intensity a bit. But over time, I started to notice that this confidence I admired so much had another side. Madison was not only direct, she was impulsive. If she did not like something, she said it without filters, regardless of the place or the people present. I remember one time at a local restaurant. The waiter took a little while to bring the food, nothing out of the ordinary, but Madison started complaining out loud. It was not just a complaint, it was almost an aggressive demand, as if the guy had done it on purpose. I tried to calm her down, told her it was not a big deal, but that only made things worse. Later, when we left, she told me I was too soft, that was why people did not take me seriously. At that moment, I let it go. I thought it was part of her personality, that she had no bad intentions, but those kinds of situations started happening again at the grocery store, at family gatherings, even with my friends. There was always something that bothered her, something that made her overreact. And little by little, those reactions stopped being directed at other people and started being aimed at me. At first, they were small comments, things like, "You should dress better, you have no ambition. No wonder you are not advancing at work." She said it with a smile, as if it were a joke, but it was not. I tried not to give it importance, but over time, those comments began to affect me more than I wanted to admit. It is not easy to constantly hear that you are not enough, especially from the person who supposedly loves you. There was a moment when I could not ignore it anymore. We had a serious conversation. I told her that her way of speaking was hurting me, that she needed to change certain attitudes if we wanted the relationship to work. To my surprise, she agreed. She told me I was perhaps right, that she could try to improve. For a few weeks, everything seemed to go better. She no longer yelled as much. She no longer made scenes in public. I thought we were finally making progress, but we were not. What changed was not her attitude, but the way she treated me. She stopped being explosive to become cold. Her comments were no longer impulsive, they were calculated. She chose the exact moment to say something she knew would get to me, and she almost always did it when other people were around. One time at my parents' house, we were having a quiet dinner. My mom had prepared food for everyone and asked if we wanted seconds. I said yes because everything was really good. Madison looked at me and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Of course, you eat like there is no tomorrow. Then you wonder why you are gaining weight." The table went silent. My mom tried to change the subject, but I felt enormous embarrassment. I did not know what to say. I just looked down and kept eating as if nothing had happened. Those types of situations became increasingly frequent. She did not yell, she did not make a scene, but every word of hers was like a blow. And the worst part was that she did it at moments when I could not respond without looking bad in front of others. I started feeling exhausted, not only emotionally but mentally. I constantly doubted myself. I wondered if she was actually right, if I really was inadequate, if the problem was me. I talked to some friends. Most of them told me that maybe she was going through a process, to give her time, that if she was trying to change, I should support her. I truly wanted to believe that, but there was something inside me that did not fit. The breaking point arrived one night. We had agreed to have dinner with a group of mutual friends. There were about 8 of us. We had all known each other for years. The idea was to have a good time, relax, and catch up. Before leaving, Madison was already annoyed about something unimportant. I do not remember exactly what it was, but we argued on the way in the car. I decided not to play along. I just wanted the night to be peaceful. When we arrived at the casual restaurant, everything seemed normal. Until I saw him. Among the guests was her ex-boyfriend. I knew who he was, but I had never met him in person. It turns out he was a close friend of someone in the group, so it was normal for him to show up at those kinds of gatherings. It did not bother me, or at least I thought so. I greeted everyone normally, even him. All very cordial. But Madison reacted differently. From the moment she saw him, her attitude changed. She got tense, serious. She barely greeted him and then sat next to me without saying much. The dinner started off well. Light conversations, laughter, work stories. I tried to include her, but she responded with monosyllables. It was obvious that something was making her uncomfortable. At one point, one of our friends made a big announcement. "Guys, I am pregnant." We all reacted with joy. Congratulations, hugs, smiles. Then, Madison, who had been distant all night, got up and hugged her enthusiastically. It was as if everything was fine for a moment. I relaxed. I thought maybe the night would end without any problems, but I was wrong. As we kept talking, another girl asked a typical question with no bad intentions. "And you guys, when is your turn?" She smiled as she said it as part of the conversation. I was about to give a neutral answer. But Madison spoke first, and what she said changed everything. Madison let out a dry laugh, the kind that is not funny at all. "Well, highly unlikely," she said. "He does not even make an effort with me lately." The table went immediately silent. Some tried to smile, thinking it was an awkward joke, but she did not stop. In fact, she continued, crossing her arms. "I am already starting to think that something is wrong, either with me or with him." I felt my body freeze. I did not know whether to interrupt her or stay quiet, but before I could react, she delivered the final blow. Although, to be honest, my ex knew how to treat me much better. And then, without any shame whatsoever, she looked straight across the table. At him. The silence was absolute. No one moved, no one spoke. The guy looked down, clearly uncomfortable. Some of our friends opened their eyes in disbelief. Others just stared at their plates as if they wanted to disappear. I felt something break inside me. It was not immediate anger. It was something deeper. It was clarity. For months I had endured comments, humiliations disguised as jokes, public contempt. I always found an excuse, a justification, but at that moment I understood something very simple. If I did not say anything, I was losing myself. I took a deep breath, slowly stood up from my chair, and spoke. "Enough, Madison." My voice came out firmer than I expected. Everyone looked at me. She did too. "I am tired," I continued. "Tired of your comments, of your humiliations, of you always having to make me look bad in front of everyone." She opened her eyes in surprise. "What are you talking about?" she said. "I was just joking." I shook my head. "No, they are never jokes. You always know exactly what to say and when to say it." The atmosphere was completely tense. I could feel my heart beating hard, but at the same time, a sense of relief started to appear. "Do you want to know why I do not get close to you anymore?" I went on. "Because every time I am with you, I feel like I have to defend myself. Because you turn everything into a competition, a critique, an attack." She stayed silent. "And today," I added, "that was simply crossing a line of no return." Madison stood up abruptly. "Do not exaggerate," she said, trying to maintain her composure. "You are making a drama out of nothing." I let out a small laugh, but not out of humor. "Out of nothing," I repeated. "You just compared me to your ex in front of everyone. Does that seem normal to you?" No one intervened, but everyone was listening. Then I did something I had not even planned. I looked at the ex-boyfriend. "Tell me something," I said to him. "Did you live through this too?" The guy hesitated for a few seconds. He looked at Madison, then at me. He sighed. "Yes," he finally answered. "That is why we broke up." A slight murmur ran across the table. Madison was completely paralyzed. "No," she whispered. "You have no right to say that." But he calmly continued. "I am not trying to hurt you, Madison, but it is the truth. Being with you is difficult." That was the final blow. She started to shake. Her eyes filled with tears in a matter of seconds. "Seriously," she said with a broken voice. "Now everyone is against me." But this time no one stepped up to defend her. I took one last deep breath. "It is not against you," I told her. "It is just that I can no longer go on like this." I grabbed my jacket. "We are done." Silence. Madison started crying openly. "You cannot do this to me," she said between sobs. "You know I love you." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt no guilt. "Love should not feel like this," I replied. I left cash on the table and walked out. That night, I got home to my apartment with my mind completely saturated. I did not feel immediate sadness. I felt empty, as if everything I had accumulated for months had finally exploded. I sat on the couch doing nothing, just staring straight ahead. I do not know how much time passed, but at some point, I fell asleep. I woke up suddenly, in the middle of the night. There was a sound. At first, I thought I had imagined it, but no. Someone was crying. I got up slowly, my heart racing. I walked to the living room, and there was Madison, sitting on the couch with swollen eyes, a wet face, and trembling hands. "How did you get in?" I asked, confused. "The door," she said through tears. "It was unlocked." I sighed. "You should not be here." She stood up immediately and came closer. "I am sorry," she said. "I am so sorry. I did not mean to say all that. I was upset. I was not thinking." I shook my head. "It is always the same." "No," she insisted. "This time is different. I swear. I am going to change." I looked at her in silence. "You said that before." Her expression changed. "So is it all just over like this?" she asked desperately. "Yes," I answered. Silence. For a few seconds, only her ragged breathing could be heard, and then she exploded. "You are not perfect either," she yelled. "You never understand me. You never know how I feel. And you do know how I feel?" I replied tiredly. "Do you know what it is like to have the person you love humiliate you in front of everyone?" She went quiet, but only for a second. "I said it because I was angry," she insisted. "I do not really mean it." "That is the problem," I said quietly. "You always want to hurt." The silence filled the room again, this time heavier, more final. I put a hand to my face. "I cannot take it anymore, Madison." She started crying again, but without yelling this time. Just defeated. "I do not want to lose you," she whispered. I closed my eyes for a moment and then picked up the phone. I called her parents. I explained the situation to them as calmly as possible. It did not take them long to arrive. When they opened the door, Madison ran to them. "He left me," she said, crying. "He does not love me anymore." Her father looked at me angrily. "What did you do?" "Nothing," I replied. "I just set a boundary." There was tension, but we did not argue much. Her mother hugged her and led her to the exit. Before leaving, Madison looked at me one last time. "Is there really nothing I can do?" I slowly shook my head. "No." The door closed, and finally, silence. Some time has passed since then. At first, it was weird. The habit, the routine, the memories. But little by little, something changed. Tranquility returned. I started feeling like myself again. I began to enjoy simple things again, without fear of a comment, a criticism, or a scene. A few days ago, I met up with my friends again. Everything was normal, light, without tension, and there I understood something important. I was not losing something valuable. I was getting out of something that was destroying me regarding Madison. I know she is already with someone else, and honestly, I feel nothing about it. No jealousy, no sadness, just confirmation. I made the right decision because I learned something I will not forget. Love without respect is not love, it is draining. And peace of mind is worth much more than any "I love you" spoken in the middle of chaos. Hello again. I did not think I would write here again, but several people asked me to share what happened after everything that occurred that night. It has been a few weeks now, almost a month since I broke up with Madison, and I think I can talk with a much cooler head now. The first few days were strange. I would not know how to describe it any other way. I was used to her presence, her messages, even her mood swings. Suddenly, all of that disappeared. The silence I had wanted so much during the relationship now felt weird. I would wake up in the mornings expecting to see a message from her, not because I wanted to get back together, but out of habit. And when there was nothing, I felt a mix of relief and emptiness. During the first few days, I also remembered the arguments a lot, specific moments, phrases, situations where now, with distance, I realized things I had previously ignored. Small details. How her tone changed depending on who was present. How she always found a way to make a fool out of me without looking like the bad guy. How I myself began to justify things that, if they had happened to a friend, I would have told him to get out of there immediately. That was what impacted me the most. Giving advice is easy, applying it to your own life is not so much. Little by little, I started to regain routines I had dropped. I went back to jogging in the mornings around the neighborhood. Something as simple as that felt different, lighter. I also took up reading again. Before, when I was with her, I often could not concentrate. I was always worried about whether something was going to trigger another argument. Not anymore. Now I could sit down, open a book, and just be at peace. It might sound exaggerated, but that kind of peace becomes a luxury when you come from an exhausting relationship. A week after everything, my friends invited me out for coffee. Nothing huge, just coffee, something simple, but it was important to me. It was the first time I had seen them since that dinner. I did not know what the atmosphere would be like, if it would be awkward, or if they would avoid the topic. But it was quite the opposite. They welcomed me as always, with jokes, hugs, with that naturalness that makes you feel like everything is fine. At some point, inevitably, the topic came up. One of them told me, "Honestly, you put up with more than anyone else would have." Another added, "Yeah, we saw it, but we did not know how to tell you without overstepping." That made me think. Often, the signs are there. The people around see them, but when you are inside the relationship, you minimize them, ignore them, or simply do not want to see them. They also told me something I did not expect. "It was obvious you were not yourself." That phrase stuck with me because it was true. I had stopped being me, and I had not even fully realized it. That conversation helped me a lot, not only because of the support, but because it made me confirm that what I was feeling was not an exaggeration. I was not being too sensitive. I was not causing drama. I was simply reacting to something that was unhealthy. Regarding Madison, I have had no contact with her, no messages, no calls, nothing. And I think that is for the best. I did find out through mutual acquaintances that she started dating someone else. When they told me, I stayed thinking for a few seconds. I expected to feel something, jealousy perhaps, or discomfort, but no, I felt none of that. I just thought, I hope she has changed. And after that, I went on with my day. That was it. And I think that says a lot because when you truly get over something, you do not need to hate. You do not need to hold a grudge. You just stop caring. Today I can say that I feel good. Not perfect, not completely healed from everything, but good, calmer, more aware, clearer. I learned several things from all this, but there is one that stands out above the rest. Love is not enough if there is no respect. You can love someone a lot. You can have a history, memories, a connection, but if that person constantly makes you feel like less, humiliates you, or breaks you emotionally, that is not a healthy love, and no matter how much you try to justify it, it will keep hurting. I also learned to set boundaries, to not stay in situations where I have to put up with things that are clearly not right. And above all, I learned to listen to myself because often deep down, you know that something is wrong, but you ignore it out of fear of being alone, of starting over, of letting go. Now I understand that being alone is not the worst thing. The worst thing is being with someone and feeling alone anyway. So yes, that was my story. I have been thinking a lot about everything that happened, more than I would like to admit, because even though I feel calm now, that does not mean everything is erased overnight. There are things that keep spinning in your head, questions that appear without warning. For example, at what point did everything start to break? Sometimes I mentally go back to the beginning, to when I met Madison, to the first dates, the first long conversations, to that feeling that I had found someone different, and she was, but not in the way I thought. I think one of my mistakes was confusing intensity with connection, thinking that someone who feels everything so extremely will also love in a healthy way. And it is not always like that. Over time, I understood that it is not about how much someone feels, but how they handle it, because you can love a lot and still cause pain. Another thing I questioned myself a lot about was why I stayed so long, and the answer is not simple. It was not just for love, it was out of habit, out of hope, out of that constant idea that she was going to change. I think many people fall into that. You see small good moments, and you cling to them. You think, if this exists, then everything else can get better. But the reality is that the good moments do not make up for a constant pattern of damage. And accepting that is hard. I also realized something uncomfortable. I allowed it, not from the beginning, but definitely over time. Every time I stayed quiet, every time I let a comment pass, every time I chose to avoid conflict instead of setting a boundary, without realizing it, I was teaching her how far she could go. And that is not easy to accept because it implies acknowledging that you also have responsibility for what you tolerate. But at the same time, there is something important. Accepting that is not blaming yourself, it is learning. It is understanding that next time things can be different because now I know how to identify signs that I used to ignore. I know what disrespect disguised as a joke looks like. I know what it feels like to constantly walk on eggshells so as not to provoke a reaction. And above all, I know that I do not want to go back to that. Lately, I have been more focused on myself, on simple things, working out, spending time with people who are good for me. I have even learned to enjoy moments of solitude. Before, they made me uncomfortable. Now I value them, because in those moments there is no tension, no expectation of conflict, no need to be on high alert. There is only calm. And that, after everything I went through, holds enormous value. I do not know when I will have another relationship. And being honest, I am in no rush. I would rather be alone than enter into something that takes away my peace again. But I also know that this experience left me with something good. Clarity. Now I am much clearer on what I want and what I do not. I want someone I can be myself with, without fear. Someone who does not see a conversation as a battle. Someone who understands that respect is not optional. And I also know that I am no longer willing to ever accept comments that humiliate, jokes that hurt, or attitudes that make me doubt my own worth, because at the end of the day, a relationship should add, not drain. It should give you peace of mind, not anxiety. It should make you feel safe, not constantly defensive. And if it is not like that, then it is not the right place. Today I can look back without anger, without resentment, just as a stage that has ended. A lesson that, although difficult, was necessary, and although I would not change what happened, I can decide what to do with what I learned. So I close this with a simple idea. Comment. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this story with me today. What stands out most to me is how important it is to value your own self-respect in any relationship. When someone crosses your boundaries repeatedly, it is okay to speak up and protect your peace. I hope you take a moment to think about the relationships in your life and whether they lift you up or wear you down. Remember that healing starts the moment you choose yourself and decide you deserve better. It is not about being perfect. It is about taking responsibility for what you allow in your life. Kindness toward others matters, but so does the kindness you show yourself every day. Choosing peace over constant conflict can feel scary at first, but it opens the door to real happiness. You have the strength to learn from these experiences and build something healthier moving forward. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.